What's up, guys? Welcome to another podcast episode 79 of the Michael Lab Show. The most ridiculous name ever for a podcast. But we're 79 episodes in now. There's no turning back. We're going to keep the foot to the pedal. We're going to keep on pushing episodes out every Tuesday and Thursday. Currently sitting in my room on lockdown, talking to you beautiful people. And just got word that if I go outside of my house today, if I go out to the public and I do not have a mask on, I can get in trouble and get fined $500. It's official. This is the craziest time period I've ever lived in my entire life. And I'm sure this is the craziest time period that you have ever lived in your entire life. And this is probably the craziest time period for human history in the sense of finances and disease and the unknowing. You know, it's every day there's just something new that's going on with the coronavirus. It's this, it's that, it's not this, it's this. And there's so much bullshit going on. And there's so much chaos going on in the world. And you know what, man? I took 2 exams. I didn't do too well. Wasn't happy about them. And it made me just go like, well, fuck. I may not even be alive in a year. We could all be dead. But all jokes aside, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's taking care of the people they love the most. I think the phase of this should just teach people to appreciate what's important in life, and it just, appreciate all the small things. I think those days are over. I think that's about gone. I think we're at a point now where it's going to be chaos from here on out. I don't think the biggest worry about this disease anymore is deaths. I think the biggest worries we should have now about the coronavirus this is going to be a insane recession, probably a depression economically. Businesses are still shut down. I've heard some things talking about possibly reopening. I know places like Europe have reopened, and across the world they're starting to let up a little bit. But, it's serious, and the hardest thing for me, at least, dealing with all this is not the social aspect and not being able to talk to people and not being able to really go out in public. That's not bothering me. What's bothering me and what's the hardest thing for me is to to keep track of the days, and also to find meaning of your life. Before this whole thing happened, I think it was super simple to distract yourself all the time from maybe, I guess, insecurities, but it was super easy to distract yourself every day. If I didn't want to do something, let's say I had homework, I had like 2 hours of homework I had to do. Before the coronavirus, I could make up an excuse. I needed to go get coffee before I wanted to do the assignment. Can't do that now. Gotta sit there, and you're forced to take a reflection and look at your life. And I think it's something that is causing a lot of anxiety in a lot of people. I know for me, by the way, thank you so much for all the feedback on the last podcast with Taylor. That was something that we were just kind of talking to each other back and forth on, and that idea just kind of came up out of nowhere. And it was actually, I really enjoyed doing that podcast with her. I think I've done like 3 podcasts. One of them was really fun. Second one was a little weird. I kind of liked it, but I think she thought it was a little strange. And the third one, the last one that you guys saw, was probably my favorite one. I think I titled it like relationship advice. It wasn't really too much relationship advice. It was just kind of our stances and our opinions on certain red flags that we see in a relationship. And I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. It was super fun for me to do. It was a little bit longer than my average podcast. Having guests on allow you to do that. You can listen to other people talk. You're talking for half the time. You're doing a lot more listening. So therefore, the podcast is going to be a little bit longer. But that was a really fun podcast. But I think Corona is going to have a long-term effect. I think I'm almost positive that by July, hopefully the economy will still be in the dumps, but I think we're going to be back up and running as much as we possibly can. I'm hoping by July, maybe June. It's hard to tell. Just don't know. The craziest thing about all this is that everywhere you look, there's an answer, but it's only an answer for a day or so. And then it's no longer the right thing to do. It's the wrong thing to do. It becomes old news again. And I think I've been listening to a lot of there's a podcaster. I wouldn't say he's a podcaster. Let me look up his title. And he's somebody that I think you guys really have to listen to. Somebody who, especially during these times, we have a lot of time on our hands. Somebody that I think could really open your eyes to the world. There's a few different guys I think you should listen to. This guy in particular is Eric Weinstein. If you Google him on his Wikipedia, it says he's the managing director of Thiel Capital, Peter Thiel's personal investment firm. He and his brother, Brett Weinstein. So Brett Weinstein was the gentleman who, I think at Evergreen College in 2014, I think it was 2014 or 15, he got caught up in a scandal, I guess you could say, where he was portrayed as a racist gentleman. He's a white man, as a racist gentleman. And it was interesting because you can look up the scandal, but he was wrongfully accused. He wasn't acting in a racist manner at all. And I know I'm a white guy saying that, but if you just look at it, he wasn't at all. He was trying to calm down chaos because what it was a mob. There was a mob, and he was trying to calm it down. But that's his brother, Brett Weinstein. So his brother's very famous. Eric Weinstein's also very famous. He's known for coining the term intellectual dark web that refers to an informal group of pundits. The intellectual dark web includes guys like him. It includes like Joe Rogan, Sam Harris. Let me just get all the names. I think who's that African American woman? There they are. Yeah, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan. I don't know. Christina Hoff Sommers. So just a bunch of people that are considered to be people who are kind of not mainstream media. They're more like podcast, and they are leaders in thoughts that are very anti the norm of whatever's being pushed in mainstream media. So he has this podcast called The Portal, and he's a physicist. He's a theoretical physicist. It says here that he has his PhD, but if I remember exactly, I don't think he has his PhD. I think he did a podcast with Joe Rogan where he talks about not getting his PhD because Harvard didn't agree with his thought process on on the idea that he was talking about in the physics community. So basically, what he has a podcast called The Portal, and I could be mistaken, and I know he's probably not going to hear this, but if he is, I'm sorry, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure. It says here you have a PhD, but I don't know if you have a PhD. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. This guy's an absolute genius, and he talks a lot about the state that we live in. and he does a beautiful podcast with Lex Fridman. And it's so hard for me to even talk about. I can't. I don't have the education to even articulate my words, explaining who he is or what he does. But he promotes this idea that the world that we're living in is completely, especially in the United States, is he's essentially it's fucking up. It's messing up in so many avenues. And he's been a big proponent of going after leadership positions. He's going after the president, but not just the president. He's going after Congress. He's going after the House and Senate. He's going after the leader of the WHO and the CDC, and he's telling them they all need to resign. They all need to step down. They're incompetent at what they do, and it's really fascinating. It's subject matter that I don't think a lot of people listen to. And he's a big proponent of the nerds, people who have known about the coronavirus for 2 or 3 months. And 3 months ago, when I think the governor of New York City was telling people to go out and celebrate, Chinese New Year. Don't worry about this coronavirus. He talks about how these nerds, these very smart people who've been outcasted in society, these people who people look at and they make fun of. They say, you're ridiculous. What are you talking about? People who suffer from Asperger's, these just super knowledgeable people, and how they're suffering, and how it's the society, the academia, the political landscape is failing the world because it's failing these people. It's not recognizing these people who have a ability to think freely. It's really fascinating, and he was asked, why can these people, these very intelligent people, these not even intelligent, but these free-thinking humans that, in a sense, same way that I am on my podcast, I think and I talk about whatever. I mean, nothing's off the table with me. Why is it that these people are not being recognized and people aren't listening to them? And the numbers are so high. The podcasts are huge. Their blogs are massive, but their ideas aren't talked about. And he talks about the failure of the academia world, especially the top institutions like Harvard and Yale and MIT, because they have these systems that are created in a way to keep pushing very similar ideas, because the concept of having something that's off the norm, that's out of the norm, they believe, these institutions in academia and political landscapes believe, that it could shut down what they have. They could lose control. And he articulates his thoughts in a much clearer and concise way. But he talks a lot about coronavirus, how this was a failure from the beginning, and how that should be the news. The numbers are the numbers. The chaos is a chaos. What's going to happen is going to happen. But he's big in talking about this as a bigger picture, as this is a failure of the world altogether. It's really interesting, and he did this beautiful podcast with Lex Fridman, who's a brilliant man. He's a big guy. He has a podcast. I think it's called just Lex Fridman podcast, or it's something AI, the AI project. Anyways, he has a PhD from MIT. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a genius too. But he has this very articulate podcast with Eric Weinstein, and the concepts that they cover are beautiful. And it's just fascinating. And to make the point even a little bit more pungent, I was watching the video and I put a comment under it. I think if you go to the video, you can see it. It has 10 likes, so I think it's near the top of comments. But I say something like, open up a bottle of wine, sit back and enjoy this podcast. This is another brilliant podcast by Lex Fridman. And someone responds in a very unique manner. He responds to me, he asks me, and he responds to me, oh, your IQ must be in the single digits. It's what do you say? I guess I can look it up right here. But the way he responded to me was just, I wasn't offended. I was kind of silly. This is what it was. I said, pop open a glass of red wine and sit back and enjoy. Lex is killing it with the interviews. Some people like it. And then this guy, he says, your IQ is single digit level with this response. What type of education do you have? Gym bra. And it's one of those things where it's just so fascinating to see that this is like, I wasn't offended by that, but I think responses like that are showcasing the ignorance that the world has. And even in situations like this, there's a deeper underbearing that the world is dealing with. There's an insecurity that is almost flowing through all of us. I watch this podcast all the time. I don't claim to be a brilliant person. I don't claim to be the smartest person. I don't even claim to say that I'm smart. I don't. I think I'm overly curious on way too many subjects. Hence these books that range from racist issues to extending a lifespan, to autism, to sleeping, to national security, to the human biology, to racism in the police force, to quantum mechanics. I think I'm just hyper curious on so many ideas. But when you get comments like that and you get responses like that, and trust me, I get those not all the time, but on a more regular basis than I think most people. I think responses like that are showcasing the insecurity that's in the world. And this is what's so interesting about this coronavirus, is you would think that at a time like this, those things would go away. And look, I'm not saying that it should go away for everybody. I'm not saying that the whole world should be nice to each other. I'm not saying he should be nice to me. If he feels that way, he should feel that way. I don't think it's wrong, but I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating that I think that response is a viewpoint of the world right now. It's in this weird defensive, highly irritated state. And before coronavirus, it was there, but times 1,000, and it's the better the world becomes, it seems, the more anti-human humans become. And then times of chaos, it seems to calm down a little bit. This is like 9/11, but extended over a month. And it's starting to fade a little bit in the sense that everybody is looking after each other. But it's getting to the point now where it's slowly fading away. And I know for me, that's what I feel. I feel that it's slowly fading away. That people are starting to return back to these just attacking modes where they're attacking other people. I had something happen. Taylor and I had something happen just about 2 weeks ago that really took me back, and it threw me into a state of panic. And that led to her talking to me, and that led to me realizing just the lack of responsibility that I claim in my own life. And this is, I'm going to get really, really real with you guys. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but what I am going to tell you is that I found myself in a position with my significant other, this woman that I want to spend my life with. And I was looking at her and I felt like a child who was naked in front of somebody who was 800 times smarter than them. I felt this lack of responsibility. I felt this failure to take control of my own life. And it really, it was one of those things where I hated that feeling. It was in my gut. I hated that. But it was one of those moments where I think, I know from that moment, it's only been like a few weeks, but from that moment, I think I've changed my whole mind state. yeah, I think I've changed my own mind, my whole mind state. I've started to be a lot more responsible. I started making my bed every morning. It's something that I was doing. It's weird how the bed making is strongly correlated with my mental focus on the world. People talk about ADHD and depression, especially ADHD, and they laugh about it and say it's not a real thing. And I don't know. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a science. I'm not a researcher. But what I can say is that I know a lot of people that can focus. I'm somebody who I have the hardest time staying linear on a subject at all. And it leads me to be a very impulsive person by nature, and it leads me to feel unaccomplished. When you're doing things every day, you're doing things, but you don't have a goal each day, you find yourself in this cycle of hatred because everything you're doing, you're not completing the task. So then you start having a lower self-esteem and you start not liking yourself. And I found myself in that cycle. I didn't have a career. Since then, I have, I think I have found something that I'm going to work towards. Imagine going through college for 5 years and not having a career in mind. That's anxiety provoking, right? But that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing. And I found myself backing it up and saying and making up excuses on why I don't need to have a career. So it led me to in this weird state where I thought I was happy, and I think I was happy, but unfulfilled, and very capable to be emotionally sabotaging because I knew I was failing myself. There was nothing in the future. I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to look at it, but it was there. And since then, I think I have found a career that I'm going to do, and it's one that I think a lot of people could guess what it is. I think it's one that I'm not going to be telling people in my life what it is for a while, but it has been able to take the wheels of my car that in a lot of aspects have been going down the right direction, but I've been able to put this specific trajectory back on track. So now I feel like a bullet with a mission. I'm not just shot at nothing. I'm shot with the intention to kill a deer or go through body armor, or I feel like I have a real purpose in my life right now. And it's making everything I do easier, and there's a why to it. And I think that's something that is slipping out of the grasp of people during this coronavirus time. I think a lot of people went into it knowing exactly what they wanted, and that's slowly been slipping away. And I think it's time to find that again, to grab it again, and to make it a priority again. And if you're somebody like me who was, sorry about my dog barking, she's been doing it all day. If you're somebody like me who had this false sense of security that they knew what they wanted and that they're doing the right thing all the time, if that was you, but you didn't have the strength to admit that no, you weren't in a good state and you were fucking up. You weren't responsible. You kind of were. People were telling you that you were, but deep down inside you weren't. I think this is a time to really find that and make a future that you're proud of, one that you think you can do for a long time. I don't know where I had that seed planted in my head. It's like 7 years ago now, where I thought I didn't need to ever say I was going to do a 9 to 5. I wanted it to be something that was different than that. And I think that's okay. I still don't want that, but I think it grew its own thing. It became its own thing, and it became something where it was reckless, and I just got to the point where I didn't want a 9 to 5, but then I got to the point where I just didn't want to plan. I thought a plan made you weak, and I didn't want to be weak. I don't want to be weak. I want to be the guy who sticks out. For some reason, I think that's what was processing through my head at the time. And it was a cancerous mind state because it came with a lot of success, but it came with a lot of emptiness because I wasn't really accomplishing things that I set out to accomplish. Because that feeling, when you accomplish something that you set out to accomplish, is fulfilling. But the feeling that you get when you randomly accomplish things that you never set out to accomplish is not fulfilling. It's dopamine releasing, it's an energy, but it's not a fulfilling. It's not going to aid you in continuing down that line of success. And I think that's where I found myself for the longest time. And I think up until 2-3 weeks ago, that's the path I was still going down. And I think it's gotten to the point now where I think I can finally say with a clear mind that I'm starting to figure out what I want to do. And I think that makes me feel good. And I'm 23. I'm whatever, who cares? I'm 23. And I think I'm finally starting to find a place in my life where I'm okay with the person I am. I don't feel like I have to be more than anything. I don't feel like I have to be something spectacular. I don't feel that I have to do something that's unique, that makes me unique. Because I think I'm finally figuring out that, no, I'm actually just me doing whatever I do is unique enough. And it's so cheesy. It sounds so dumb. And it sounds like what are you doing? Like, you sound so stupid. What are you talking about? But I think it's something that we all need to hear at times of our life. And I know, especially during this lockdown, this quarantine, it's something that can slip our mind, and it can become hard and dangerous at times, especially when you lose your original objective. Spiraling out of control can happen very quickly, and it can get so bad where you completely lose yourself. And I did not want to get onto that path. And I think I'm finally in a state where I'm not in that path. I think I'm finally taking control of my life. And I'm okay with just doing the podcast, going to school. The people that I care about are actually the people who I surround myself with. So I don't think I need to act like something I'm not to just develop more relationships. I've never felt that way. But I've emphasized that I don't need to do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and something that I think a lot of people could benefit from. It can be hard. It can be hard. It can be hard to look at yourself in the mirror. I didn't. If it wasn't for that conversation with her, I don't think I would have. I want to think hopefully one day I would have, but it would have been right away. It wouldn't have been right away. There's a personality flaw that I possess, that I think a lot of people possess, especially men. It's this personality flaw where you refuse to pivot in your life, to make a change in your life until you've crashed completely. You crash your plane and you're in rock bottom in a specific subject, and then you change. Like, you want to be the, what's that thing? Out of fire comes that bird, that maverick bird or whatever, a falcon. You want to be amazing. You want to showcase excellence in times when no one expects you to showcase excellence. So the only way you do that is if you come from a life where nothing was expected of you, or you completely tear your life apart and then you build it back up. And I can tell you from experience, I chose the latter. The latter can lead to success. The latter can make you feel good. But what the latter also does is it can make you feel like shit and lost and empty, unfulfilled. And you become a very insecure person. And you start attacking people who are in positions of life that they're okay with. But their happiness makes you resent yourself even more and more and more. And so when I saw that comment, that's what I thought. That's honestly what I thought. I felt bad for the gentleman. I felt bad for him because to be in a mind state where you sit down at your computer, you listen to these two brilliant minds speak to each other, and they talk to each other, and they have some heated debates, but they continue to have them in a very articulate way. You scroll down, you see the comments, you see this guy. It's me. I have a real logo for my podcast. It's me in like a SpaceX shirt with my hat on backwards. And there's a logo there, so I'm a person. I'm a real person. I'm at least not like a troll. Click my page. I have a lot of episodes uploaded, a lot of videos uploaded. A lot of it's fitness. So I felt bad for this person who went out of the way to respond in a way that was just, the intention was to make me feel bad about myself. The intention was to be a bully. And so when I saw that comment, at first I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, I was confused by it. I was confused by it. And I could understand what he was saying. I had like too many exclamation marks. It's great. And I had he's had a great guest on. It's just a very overly used word that I think it can make you sound kind of stupid. And then I do go to the gym a lot, so I think that there's power in that. I think there's been enough bro science and enough meatheads out there who have fed into this stereotype of being a dumb meathead that just works out. I think a lot of muscleheads have supported that. But I felt the pain inside of this person. And I don't know why, but I felt this pain inside of this person, and it translates itself into a lot of people that I know personally, and a lot of things that I see in the person that I have been. And it's just not a good place to be in. We all know people like that, family members especially, immediate family and extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, friends who they have this deep ravishes of insecurity and resentment about their lives, about who they are. They're not happy. And so they find this power and this escapism over the internet, but in person too at times, to bring down people who maybe open themselves up a little bit more for critique, like I do. I would say I open myself up to a doorway of criticism a lot more than the average person. When you have nearly 80 episodes, probably 100 episodes if you count my last podcast that I had, of content, of talking about personal things, I do think you open yourself up to that world, and I accept that. But what I also do is I do feel for these people, and I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of that these days, especially during coronavirus. I think a lot of people have that. And I don't know how to fix it, and I don't think it's my job to fix it. I don't think it's anyone's job to fix it. But I think there's a understanding that we can all have. I have an understanding for him. I get it. I know why you would respond in a manner like that. But I don't think should be accepted and not talked about. I think there's an importance of claiming a goal and being responsible enough to achieve that goal, and in doing so, you become less resentful towards other people because you become heavily focused on yourself and your goals. I think that is the secret at least right now, with the person I am today, that's the secret to survive and to feel good and to feel positive about the impact you've been making on yourself and the impact in the world, especially during these trying times. And yeah, it's kind of all I wanted to say. I just want to get on here and just kind of express my thoughts about what's been going on. I wanted to talk a little bit about Eric Weinstein and Lex Fridman, and I want to suggest those two minds to you guys. Some entertainment to get you through the next, hopefully only 2-3 months. But we will have to work as a society, as a human race, these next few years, because it's going to kick back hard. It's going to be a continued issue. So just endless love towards everybody. Endless respectfulness towards everybody. Let's all obey the rules as much as we can. Let's all respect each other, respect our wishes, and we'll get through this. We always will. And I think, if anything, this is going to teach people just about how delicate life is. Isn't it crazy if you think about it? If you are a supporter of the Big Bang Theory, the world started on we are, you and I, this camera, everything around me, this Diet Dr. Pepper cream soda. We're all a product of something that exploded, that was tinier, that could have fit. We're all the product of the Big Bang that blew up from an atom collection that was so tiny it could sit on the top of a pen. And that's life. That's life. That's what we are. And I think sometimes we forget that. I'm not the most religious person in the world. I don't pray, really. I believe in a higher power, but I don't believe in a heaven in the traditional sense. I'm a spiritual person. Religious or not, though, even if you are a big backer of Charles Darwinism and evolution, which I am, the fact that something as tiny that could fit on top of a pen exploded billions of years ago and got us to the point where we are today, I think there's something that needs to be said for that. I think there's a level of respect that needs to be shown for something like that. I think there's a miracle that all of us turn our heads to, and we get caught up in chaos. And we need to retrace the meaning of life, especially during these times, and know that we will be okay and we will survive. Lex Fridman posted something on Instagram. He said, there are 320,000 plus distinct viruses in mammals and 100 million plus invertebrates, plants. There's an epic microscopic world war going on all around us and inside us. Nature is beautiful and terrifying. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the shit that we have to recognize, that even during these terrifying moments, even during these absolutely horrifying moments where people are dying, people are losing their jobs, people are jumping out of windows, committing suicide, doing crazy shit, there's a level of beauty that is also in this. 320,000 plus viruses in mammals, and one's taking us out right now. There's a stability in the earth that is so goddamn fascinating and so beautiful, and it's a It's constantly rocking like the ship on an ocean sea. And right now we're just caught up in a huge storm, but it will subside. It will subside. And the beauty that this is the virus, the only one that's really taken us out for the last 70 years. I think there's beauty in that. I think we all have to remember that, especially during these moments right here. Nature is beautiful. It's also terrifying. But the dictionary would not have the word beautiful. There would be no such thing as beautiful if we didn't know what terrifying was. The only reason why beautiful means anything is because there's an opposite. There's something that is distinctly different from the word. And I think moments like this, times like this, are trying us, to pushing us at each other, against each other, at ourselves, against the political landscape, against the colleges, against a lot of things, making us fight against each other. But I think it's these times are the reason why in 3 to 5 years we're going to be looking back and feeling so blessed for that moment. We're going to say thank you that we got through that moment, because now I'm 28 years old. This is me in the future, and I know I've been through that. And what I have now, I respect and I love so much more because of the coronavirus in 2019. And I think these are things that we have to recognize, and things that are going to save us. And it's going to make us a better person, a better human race. Yeah, guys, that's all I really got talked about. Thank you guys so much for showing this podcast continued support. It means the world to me. I couldn't do it without listeners. I love you guys. I picked up the book Animal House by George Orwell. Never read it. Totally supposed to, I think, in school. But I'm reading it now. Let you guys know how it was. Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. An incredible book. Highly recommend it, like I already said on my last podcast or 2 podcasts ago. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. See you.